Similarly to other disciplines, have TikiTaka versus counter-attack, submission fighters versus knockout fighters. In the same way, there is a there is a dichotomy in chess. There are two types of chess players. There are static players versus dynamic players. But what I mean by static versus dynamic chess players, let's start with the static players. Basically, the static players prefer playing opening variants that allow them to slowly accumulate several small but permanent weaknesses in the opponent position until it's not possible for the opponent to defend all of them, and the opponent position collapses. When the position is not defendable anymore, the static player can finish the match by tactics or by technique. What I mean is that after all these slow but permanent maneuvers and movements, the static player can finish the match by checkmate, winning a rook, trapping the queen. That would be the tactical fashion. Or after all this preparation, the match can be finished by technique, which means arriving at winning ending. Let's say arriving to the ending with a good bishop versus a bad bishop, or with the king more active than the opponent ones. So it's possible for an static player to finish the match by checkmate or by arriving to the ending with a huge advantage. But the point of the method of the static player is that after generating these weaknesses in the pawn structure and placing the pieces in a way that adds pressure on such weaknesses, and exchanging the pieces in a convenient way according to the pawn structure, after all that, they can explore in a tactical fashion or in a technical fashion. Famous players, famous static chess players, definitely Capablanca, Karpov, and Vishianan. They were famous for this playing style. Let's move to the dynamic players. The dynamic players prefer playing opening variants that rapidly, immediately present temporary but big and multiple threats to the opponent. This makes the opponent to spend time, a lot of time and a lot of energy checking constantly many variants before moving, because there is no clear move that solves all the threats at once. Such threats are performed on a chaotic position in which pawn structures are destroyed. For both players or for one, doesn't matter. The pawn structures basically don't matter. What matters is a chaotic position in which the pieces have mobility and can even get sacrificed in order to checkmate the king. And the opponent needs to find the correct move from positions in which most of the choices lead him to lose. Again, dynamic players can finish the game in a tactical fashion or in a technical fashion. Let's say by technical fashion, I mean again, they after all these threats, the opponent manages to handle the main threats, but somehow by handling these threats, the match arrives to an ending in which the dynamic player has 2 more pawns, the dynamic player gets a better piece, etc. So basically, the dynamic player can also finish a game, arriving to a more favorable ending. But most of the time, a dynamic player finishes the game by checkmate. Like as you can see in the position on the screen, the black player is almost performing checkmate to white, but white performed checkmate before. So this is a clear example, the best example probably, about a dynamic player finishing the match in a tactical fashion. Famous dynamic chess players are definitely Bobby Fischer, of course Kasparov, and nowadays I would say the stronger dynamic chess player probably is Hikaru Nakamura. Probably it's worth to clarify that both static players and dynamic players, they know both static and dynamic aspects of chess. What I mean is, dynamic players, they have huge expertise on static aspects of chess. Also, static players, they also have huge expertise on the dynamic aspects of chess. The difference, and why we call them static players or dynamic players, is their preference. How static players feel more comfortable on static positions, and dynamic players feel more comfortable on dynamic positions. So static players try to avoid dynamic positions, and dynamic players try to avoid static positions. But if they reach these positions, they have enough knowledge to handle them. There is a utopic type of chess player. This player that doesn't have any preference. This player that can handle both types of positions. This player is able to handle dynamic positions and also static positions, and he doesn't feel uncomfortable on any of these kind of positions. But that is a little bit of utopia, because I would say nowadays the only chess player that could be, arguably could be a universal chess player is Magnus Carlsen. And this is because he is able to defeat his opponents regardless of the type of the position, regardless of the type of variants they play against him. Sometimes they play in a dynamic fashion against him and they lose, and he also wins by playing static opening variants. So for many chess fans, the universal chess player is Magnus Carlsen nowadays, and for many chess fans, he is the GOAT. So this makes a question to raise on my head. Playing bullet is gonna help us to improve our static skills? Definitely not, because on bullet you play chaotic positions because there is no time to think, and you look for tactics in order to make your opponent to sleep on the ground on a blunder, basically. But bullet can help us. So the other question is, playing bullet can help us to improve our dynamic skills? Definitely yes, of course. Other question, is playing bullet the only one way in which we can improve our dynamic skills? I would say no. Probably part of the training to improve the dynamic skills can be playing bullet, but definitely is not the only part of your training if you want to improve your dynamic skills. And definitely totally unrelated to the training you need to perform in order to improve your static skills. Well, um, that's all. And this stream is not about bringing theory, but I wanted to share with you how what I have understood until this day about chess, and mostly this is how I envision chess nowadays.